The trip tool of Avansovka explained. We're very proud of the trip tool. The trip tool will make your business trips and the sorting of all expenses very easy. Let's do a small example. You go to the trip management. You add now a trip. A trip consists of different legs. Legs are the steps in the trip. For example, the train ride from Moscow to St. Petersburg, the stay in St. Petersburg, and then the train ride back from St. Petersburg to Moscow. So this trip, for example, a 2-day trip to St. Petersburg consists out of 3 trip legs. That might seem a little bit difficult in the beginning to understand, but the basic function is that you tell the system where you were when, and then if you file the expenses that were incurred in this time period with the correct timestamp, they all sort automatically. Thus, if you have a very complicated trip, 5-6 steps, 5-6 cities all over the world, lots of expenses, all your expenses will be filed in the correct order. And that is unique in the trip tool. That will make it much more easy for your assistant or accountant to sort out all of that, and will increase the quality of the expense reporting substantially and will decrease the time effort and the number of mistakes happening, because now you have an order of all of your expenses. But not only your assistant or accountant has an order, you also have an order, and you can check it much more easy if you forgot any of your expenses to file, and thus would receive less money back. So setting up a trip takes a little bit, but in general you can set up a trip in 1 to 2 minutes. So imagine how much free time you actually normally have on a trip when you sit in a plane, when you drive the metro, when you drive with a taxi to the airport. There's always 2 or 3 minutes. So before a trip, set it up and then file the expenses at the time they're incurred. And then they're sorted automatically through the system. So 1 minute of setup time saves you afterwards lots of effort and saves you lots of money, because it's gonna working out. It's gonna sort all your expenses. You can add in the trip tool also comments, text comments, voice comments, and all of this goes to your assistant or to your accountant afterwards, and they understand what you did, why you did it. You can add comments about then the single expenses, what is to be billed, what is to be recharged, and so on. It allows you a clear and straight communication with the people processing your expenses. Voice comments, as said earlier, very simple to add to the trip. So it's a beautiful tool to structure everything in case you have difficult business trips and travel all over the world, all over Russia. So let's see how this works like. Now we have added here for your ease of use also some sample data. Here now you see the trip tool set up, and now if you add an expense, you can add it to this trip. This is called an active trip, meaning it's open. Here we go to a sample data area. Now sample data is installed. The sample data is actually a real business trip. Let's take a look. In order to get to it, we need to go to the correction page, because it's active, has been filed. So to see the precise trip, what it looks like, we need to go to corrections and then edit again. You have the wheel above. What are the trip legs with the timings of each trip leg? Then you have the definition, if it was Russia or not, which is important for the automatic calculation of the per diems. You have the comment function, and in this way you structured your entire trip with comments step by step. Now when you file the expenses against this, how does it look like? We'll give you an example. Go to reporting sheet and then go, these are the reports in there, the single expense reports added to it. And then you see below that you have a trip function and you can actually send the trip. So you send the trip with all of the description of the trip and add to this all of the expenses. Here, preview report, and that is what it looks like. It adds all of the data you added to the expenses. It adds all of the pictures you added to the system, and it sends it in one report to your assistant or accountant. Imagine if you start the system when you jump into the taxi in Moscow. You can send all of this to your assistant or accountant basically when you take the taxi ride home from the train station. All is done, very easy. The expenses arrive in the office before you arrive back to the office. And the next working day you start in the office without spending any concerns about the expenses because it's already filed. You just hand in the originals and it's done. You're done with your expense reporting. All done, and they can take care of it, whoever processes your expenses. So very easy, very simple, and much more practical than getting back to the office and trying the next day to sort out what all of this was, reporting it into some Excel sheets, handing it over, explaining it when you're already overwhelmed by other work. And if you like to add some comments, it's an email, so just add some comments on the email. Now you can do expense reporting on the fly when you travel. No need to wait till you come back to office. No need to wait till you have some platform. It's all done. Just file your expenses during the trip. That's what we call flexibility by design. And actually, if you like to have a simplified trip, you just program trip and add all of the expenses and say none of these trip legs. It's very simple. Avansovka is the platform to be used. Avansovka.ru, and you see many more examples how we can simplify expense reporting with Avansovka with a flexibility by design approach. You decide how you want to use that platform. Enjoy expense reporting.